Hello, Abraham. I wanted to start with gratitude. Thank you so much for your teaching. I sort of got stuck in step one for about 5 years until July, and you popped up on YouTube. I was in a place of...
Step one, contrast helps you know what you want. Step two is source knows what you want and focuses on it, and it actually becomes a reality. Step three is you focus upon what your inner being knows, and so it's a vibrational reality for you that's in the process of becoming. Step four is you're really good at that. Master of step three is what step four is. Step five is you're in contrast, but you're not mad at yourself about being in contrast because you accept that it's an important part of the process. So you think that's where you're at? You are appreciating?
Now,
yeah.
Since July, I rediscovered you, and my whole life has changed. The disaster I thought was coming was kind of no big deal. I live in a different state. I've got a new car, new career. Everything's changed, and so I just wanted to say thank you. I'm really grateful to be right here, right now.
We're happy that you understand how it works and are focusing deliberately. Deliberate creation is so much more fun than creation by default.
Yes, it is.
Because things are always changing. It's just nice when they change in the direction of what you want or of what feels good to you. Yeah. And so?
My question is, really following on from the last person, I have a fascination with people who have made their transition into non-physical and then come back.
You know why? Well, you have a fascination with people who have made their way into non-physical because they have a fascination with you. All that is non-physically focused is really interested in what you've got going on, but interested in where you're going, not so much where you are. But your question was a little different than that. You're talking about them actually coming back, but we want to soften that hard rule belief that you've got going, that you're physical, non-physical, physical, non-physical, physical, non-physical, because it really isn't that way. You're always non-physical and sometimes focused here, and all of them are the same. But when you say focused here, you mean that they have been born into a new body. And if you think of it as a stream of consciousness, in other words, the inner being that is you is focused in many humans at the same time. You come in sort of clusters. We sometimes hear people say, well, I was born in 1957 and this person died right before I was born, so I think I'm him. And we say, he didn't have to die for you to get him. Energy is energy and focus is focus and attraction is attraction, and it's not like that. It's not a clump of non-physical energy assigned to a clump of flesh. It's not like that.
Not exactly where I was going, but my question is, people who have made their transition have had this experience of the fullness of source, and they bring it back with them and their whole life changes. And my question is...
Wait, say more.
My question is...
No, before you go there, what do you mean?
Well, when people have that, they call it a near-death experience, and they have that experience...
So you're talking about those who seem to have transitioned, but they didn't really leave their body. And so when they return back into consciousness, they have a greater sense of the big picture?
Yes, they have an experience of source.
You're talking about what humans call near death, not what humans call death.
Right. Well, they seem to go over there and come back.
Yeah.
And they come back with a memory of that unconditional love. And that, is it possible to have that experience without croaking is my question.
Oh, yeah. That's what we talk about all day, every day. That's how your inner being feels. You don't have to croak and you don't have to have a near-death experience to do that.
I mean, to have that really full, visceral experience.
What that's about for someone who has that experience is that they've lived some contrast, usually quite a bit, and they've put a whole lot of requests into their vortex. Requests that their patterns and habits of thought are not accommodating. So they know what they don't want, they know what they do want, but they don't line up with that. So they know what they don't want, they know what they do want, but they still don't line up with it. So they know what they don't want and they know what they do want and they still don't line up with it. So they know what they don't want and they know what they do want and they still don't line up with it. So now they've got this powerful calling, and then in a moment of no resistance, that calling is answered and they find the clarity of the alignment that they are craving so much. This is a big conversation. Let's have it. Let's talk about actually releasing the focus in this physical body and re-emerging into non-physical. What's that about? Well, you've been listening to us even here today talking about how life causes you to identify what you want, and there is a path of least resistance to what you want. And sometimes with a lot of desire, the path of least resistance to what this consciousness wants is a releasing of physical and a re-emerging into non-physical. And it's so delightful. Now humans who are left behind call that a tragedy, but those who wanted the absence of resistance and allowed it in that way call it successful creating. You see what we're getting at? So sometimes in a process like that, and someone having had the experience of releasing the resistance and re-emerging, there's a conscious realization that there's still so much potential and so much wanted here in physical form that can satisfy that desire. And so then it is a collaborative decision that's made on the part of the whole of you, you and your inner being, and you re-emerge to continue the delicious progression of your evolution while you're still in this physical body. But really, in the big scheme of things, you never stop expanding, you never cease to be. You are an eternal being, and it's mostly only humans who nitpick over the details. Helpful? We want it to be.
Yeah.
So many people that are having their what you call their death experience, it's the path of least resistance for them going to where they really want to be. Esther had a friend some years ago make her transition, and she did it deliberately. And Esther was pretty mad at her because Esther knows how much joy is available still here in this physical experience, and she had talked with this woman enough to know that she had desires that Esther, from her vantage point, knew could be satisfied, but this person opted for what was the path of least resistance for her. And it took Esther a while to hear us explain that life is life, and that from this non-physical perspective there is no looking back and there are no regrets. There's only moving forward, you see. And so you can remain in this physical body and be in vibrational concert with your inner being and move forward, and forward here in your physical body is the vibrational things that you put into the vortex, manifesting into things that you can see and hear and smell and taste and touch, manifesting into emotions and lovely happy life experience. Or sometimes it's re-emerging into non-physical where all of that is happening too. It's just the humans who want to nitpick over it. And the reason you do is because you've picked up beliefs along your physical trail that are flawed premises. Like you're here to prove worthiness and you shouldn't leave until you've proven it. Things like that that are just bogus.
I'm just looking for that connection to source, to feel it fully in my body, because I know I have a lot more to do here. But
it's your emotions that let you know about it. When we began talking about this feeling of satisfaction, because we know that from satisfaction the momentum increases until you get all of that ecstasy and passion that you're describing here that you want. Esther sat for a whole afternoon one day after a recent discussion about satisfaction, asking herself to recall moments in time when she knew for sure she was feeling unequivocal satisfaction. She wanted to identify that state of being and focus on it till she had isolated it for sure. So the first thought that flowed into her mind when she asked that question was during the 11 or 12 years that Jerry and Esther were running around the nation in these big monster buses, towing a car behind them, mostly staying in campgrounds and moving from city to city to have seminars like this. And Esther thought about those early mornings when they would get up eager about the day, pull the rooms in on the bus, pull the cords and hoses in, stow everything so that it could withstand Esther's driving. And that feeling of pulling out of the campground onto the frontage road, onto the highway, and that feeling of adventure, that feeling of newness, that feeling of morning, that light-hearted feeling of anticipation of wonderful things. So as Esther recalled those moments, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. She said, I know for sure that that is what satisfaction is. And then she thinks about slipping into a beautiful booth in a beautiful restaurant where she can smell delicious food with lovely friends that she adores, in anticipation of uplifting conversation and fun. And she knows that feeling of satisfaction. Don't have to do anything, just be here with you guys. And good stuff comes as a result of that feeling of satisfaction. And as she got rolling, then countless thoughts of children and grandchildren and tree houses and moments in time and music and experiences began to flood into her mind until she had identified and isolated and recreated a vibration of satisfaction, which meant she's good for now. In other words, under those conditions, only those thoughts and more can come into her experience, because law of attraction is responding to her now vibration, you see. So that's all it is. But you got to start where you can start. If you're having a knee-jerk reaction to something that's happened in your moment in time, and that's the moment that you decide that you want to have that uplifting connected feeling, you're not going to get there from there usually. So that's why we say start when it's easier. And it's really the reason that we teach meditation, because if you meditate on a regular basis every day and you quiet your mind for a little bit, 15 or 20 minutes, and you feel that detachment from anything that isn't resonance with your inner being, then in that no thought and no resistance, you are in a satisfied vibration. And then you're open to receive more. That's how it works. Yes.
Yes. And I do get glimpses of it in meditation. I was just wanting more and more.
Well, we like it when you get glimpses of it in meditation, but this is the point that we're making. We want you to get glimpses of it when you're in full conscious awareness state, because we don't want you to sit in meditation all day. We want you to be out alive and real in the world. We want you to be making lists of positive aspects and paying attention to the way you feel. We want you to be satisfaction leaning. We want you to lean in the direction of your inner being. Your inner being is always calling you. And most of all, we want you to understand that it doesn't take much to lean in that direction before your inner being will sweep you right in, because it's just like that car headed down for the bay. When you're in satisfaction, you're on your way to that bay. In other words, momentum is momentum. And when you set your momentum in motion toward who you really are, and then you begin romping with the fullness of all of that power and clarity, the energy that creates worlds is flowing through you, is your basis of attraction. But you got to be satisfied with satisfaction before you can feel ecstasy. If you want to jump from discouragement into ecstasy, you're not going to make that jump. You got to find your way to satisfaction, and then the jump is non-existent, really. Something more?
Oh, that was good.
Really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, really good.